Live.
All right, good evening. Daf Yomi sponsors for the week, Rabbi Aaron and Evelyn Kaslasi. In honor of the engagement of their daughter Alana to Joy Brescher from Los Angeles, and Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by Rabbi Yehuda Greenwood, B'zchus Refuah Shlema for Mercedes Bas Miriam. And Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by Kahal Yereim, Daf Yomi Kruli Ili Nishmas Bela Yentel Bas El Chanon. Last night of Maseches Makkos. Where'd it go?
I know. Flew by.
So you got to jump in.
Time flies by when we're having fun.
If you had invested 3 weeks ago, you would have a full Masechta done.
Yeah.
By now.
This is one of the shortest, or?
This is one of the shortest.
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to see. You blink and you miss it. Horios is coming up, right? That one's coming up. But Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, 8 lines down. V'amar Rav Sheshes Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rav Sheshes says, in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Kol HaMevaze Es HaMoadim. We were in the midst of a series of drushos where we started them with learning what the lashes, the strap for the lashes should be made out of, where essentially two different ideas are written next to each other, and we learned that the two things are sort of connected. So, where do we know? The pasuk says that anybody who is who's mevaze the moadim, somebody who is doesn't take care of the Yom Tov, right? He does malach on Chol Moed, right? So if somebody is not careful with Chol Moed, ki'ilu oved avodah zarah, it's like he worships idols. The pasuk says, Elohei maseicha lo sa'selach, should not make engraven statues for yourself. V'samech lein, right afterwards, as Chag HaMatzos tishmor, you should guard Pesach. Okay. The Amar of Sheish Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, called Mesaper Lashon Hara, v'chol Mekabel Lashon Hara. Anybody who speaks Lashon Hara, anybody who listens to Lashon Hara, v'chol Hameid Edus Sheker, or testifies falsely, Ro'il Hashlichu L'Klavim, that he's worthy to get thrown to the dogs. The pasuk says, La'kelav Tashlichun, so by talking about the meat that is nevela, that was not slaughtered property, should get thrown to the dogs. V'samech le, and nearby it says, Lo Siso Shem Hashav, you should not bear false witness, and kari beinam, you can also read it as lo sasi, you should not receive the false witness, so therefore don't listen or speak lashon hara.
If you listen to the lashon hara,
that is also avera. Yeah.
Well, what happens if you try to walk away and the gospel is following you?
Then you put your earlobes in your ears like this to keep it so nobody can't hear. That's what you do. Okay. V'amar of sorry, we did that one. Ushtei ritzuos. Okay, so now they take the two straps of donkey hide and they weave it into there. So they sew it in there. So Tana shel chamor. So we learned that you used to use donkey hide, kedorish hahu galilah alei de Rav Chisda, like the certain Galilean said about Rav Chisda's statement. Yoda shor konehu v'chamor Avos ba'alav. So pasuk says that a ox knows who its master is, and a donkey knows the trough of his master. Yisrael lo yada, but the Jewish people, they don't. Meaning that's even an animal knows who its boss is, and yet when the Jewish people are sinning, they don't realize who the boss is. Hashem. So Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu. So Hashem says, Yavo misha makir avos ba'alav v'yifra misha eno makir avos ba'alav. The animals that know their master should come and exact punishment from the Jewish people who do not know who their master is. Okay, yada tefach. The handle is a tefach. So Rabbi says Shma mina. We learn from here kol chad v'chad lepum gabei of dinan le, that they are going to be making a new strap, a new whip for every single person, because it has to be able to go around and hit the person in exactly the right space. So Amar le Rava says him came nafish l'ritzuos. In that case, they're going to have like a whole series of straps. I guess they probably don't have that many. You just have like the appropriate size, like a series of them, right? So you have them all the appropriate size, and they just take the one out, right? So then there'll be a lot of them. Ella, so he says that doesn't make sense to be able to have so many different whips. Ella Rava says avaksa islay. There was a knot in the whip. Kiboy mikdar bay, kiboy merapibel. They could adjust the length of the whip using this knot in order to make sure that it was exactly the right length. So that could be adjusted. It was an adjustable whip. Malkin also. Okay, so we give him lashes. Minani mili. So you're going to give him lashes once in the front, 2 in the back. So where do we know that from? Amar Rav Kahana says, Damar Kroch, his pasuk says, V'hipilu hashofet v'hiko lefanav, that the judge is going to bend him over and he's going to hit him in front of him. Kedei rishaso, so it'll be in front of him according to his how bad he was, which is rishaso singular 1, b'mispar, and then on his back will be a number. So risha achas milifne, which means that one of the lashes for his wickedness will be in his front. Shtei rishayos me'acharav, and 2 on his back. Ein malkid also. Okay, so we're going to give him what Inox was in the Mishnah. Remember the line. Ein malkin also is
Ein malkin also.
Ein malkid so you don't give him malchus while he's standing or sitting. Rather, he's bent over a little bit.
The victim strikes him neither
standing
or nothing but bent over.
Yes,
as it says, the judge shall cast him down.
Good. Tamar Rav Chisda, Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Chisda said, Rabbi Yochanan, minayin l'ritzua shehi muchpeles. How do you know, as the Mishnah said, that you're supposed to take the strap and bend it over and then double it over again? So Shenemar, as the pasuk says, vehi pilo. The word hipil means to push him down, or like from the shorish nafal to bring him down. But it also sounds like the word kefel, to double over. So therefore it has a double language. Yeah, but vihipilo tells me that means that you're supposed to push the guy down, right? He's supposed to be bent over. So imkain, if that was all it meant, it only meant the one thing, lichtov kro yatihu, then the pasuk would have used the word yatihu, which would mean to push him down. My hipilu, why does it use the word hipilu? Shma minotarti, it has a double meaning, right? That the person gets pushed down and you're using a lash that's bent over that is also doubled over. Hamaka, maka biyado, the one who's giving the lashes, so he hits him with the one hand. Tana Rabbana rabbis learn, ein ma'amidin chazonin ela chasiri koch v'yiseri mada. You're supposed to appoint the guy who's in charge of the whipping should be somebody who isn't that strong and he should be intelligent, right? Basically, he should know how to count, right? Not lose track of his counting, because that's a bad thing. Lose track of your count. What was I up to? 7? I think I was up to 7, 8. What was I? Where was I? 2, 3. You don't want that guy. So Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Afilu chasiri mod, even a guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. V'yisiri koach, and he's very strong. Yeah, it's even why. What's their machlokas about? We know that when it came to death sentences, that we were trying our best to be as lenient as possible. So machlokas is, does that apply to malchus as well? Right? Do you have an obligation that even though we're not killing the person, but we don't want to inflict the punishments as strong as we possibly can?
The person administering the malchus, he's also responsible for counting?
No, we're going to see somebody else is responsible, but we're going to see why it's
has
important.
To be the intelligent one.
Good luck, right? Good luck to the whipper.
We're going to see why. That he has to be paying attention, I guess. Samarava kavase de Rabbi Yehuda mistabra. Rabbi Yehuda's point that you can have somebody who isn't that bright doing the lashes makes sense. Dichsiv, because the pasuk says lo yosif pen yosif, right? You should not add on lashes, because if you do, then that's an avera. So iamar bishlama chasiri mada. So I understand if the guy's not that bright, hanud tzarich lazhuri. That's why the Torah has to tell you don't add on. I mean, what kind of dummy thinks that you're supposed to add on? Ella iamar yasire mada. If he's smart enough, mitzarich lazhuri, do you have to even warn that guy? So for Rabbana, the Rabbana says in mizarzin. Ein mizarzin ella le mizuras. The answer is you only give warnings to people who can benefit from the warning, right? If the guy's an idiot, then you're telling him to stop.
It's not worth warning him.
It's not worth it. It's not worth warning him. You have to use the intelligent guy. At least you say, be careful, right? Okay.
Also, when it says 40, it is 40. It's not at least 40, right?
It's maximum 40.
Maximum 40.
Correct. Yes.
So if he goes over, he's transgressing.
That's correct. Yes.
Torah commandment.
That's correct.
Does the lasher get lashes?
No. Right. It doesn't seem like the losa say. That's a good question. Is the malchus? That it doesn't seem like it, but I don't know why. I think there was a specific. We said there were specific psukim. I have to go back through the Gemara. We had specific psukim that made the person not liable. Otherwise, generally speaking, you'd think he would be, but we made him specifically not liable. Tana, we learned keshu magbia, when he raises the whip up. Magbia b'shtei yadav, he uses 2 hands to lift the whip. Keshu maket, when he brings the whip down, maka b'yado achas, he uses 1 hand. Kihechi delese mididei, so that he gives it a good, nice, strong whacking, right?
Stronger
when you do it that way. Okay, try throwing a baseball with two hands. It's not the same as when you throw it
But
with
I
one
also
hand.
don't wind up with a baseball like this and then throw it with one hand.
I don't know if you play cricket. I don't know how they do all kinds of wacky winds up or something.
Also, to do it in the back is less painful than
Right.
the front.
It's true.
that's-
I mean, I
so-
guess.
How do you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
That
sounds about
No,
right.
I mean it's.
That makes
How do you
sense.
know you've had it done to you before?
No, but it sounds like it should be.
Sounds like
More meat on the back.
That's also chesed. Yeah.
Okay, v'ha-korei. So then you had one person in the basin who was reading it, who was reading these psukim out loud. So Tanur Rabban and Rabbi said, Hagadol shebedayan, and the main judge, Korei, he was reading the psukim that was listed in the Mishnah that they were supposed to be reading. Hasheni Mona, the second guy in the basin, he's the one who is counting. Shlishi Omer Hakeu, and the third guy's job was to go hit, right? So it was like one go, one, hit, bam, two, hit, bam. Okay, that would how it like get a rhythm going. Bisman shemakim meruba, when there's a lot of lashes to give, ma'arich, then the guy who's reading has got to take a longer amount of time to read the psukim. He's got to read slower, right? So he's got enough time to get all the lashes in. Bisman shemakim uetes, when they're going to give fewer lashes, mekatzer, so then he's going to read faster in order to be done quicker. V'ha'nantnan, but our Mishnah said, choser l'tchilas hamikra, that we had the circumstance. The Mishnah says that when he finishes, he starts over again and just keeps going. Why does he have to go shorter? He can just start again. So the answer is mitzvah l'tzamtim. It's a mitzvah to do it one time and to get it exact. But if it doesn't work and it takes longer or whatever and you don't finish, then you go and you say it again. Okay. So it says that you're not supposed to give a lot of extra lashes, right? Pasuk says, Arba'im yakenu lo yosif. You're supposed to hit him 40 times. Don't do any more. Pen yosif lahakoso al eila makaraba. That because lest you hit him many lashes more than this, and your brother will be debased.
Sounds like one is okay.
Oh, that's exactly what it sounds like. So it says I can't give many extra lashes. What about a couple of extra lashes? Tamad lomar lo yosif. The pasuk says don't add on. Okay, so that's not. Imkein ma tamad lomar makaraba. So if that's true, then why does it say a lot of lashes? If it means you can't even add on a few lashes, limit al rishona shein makaraba. So tell me that even that first one, that's a lot of lashes. Any extra is a lot. Niskalkel. Okay, then we say that he's supposed to be debased, right? So therefore, if he soils himself, so then he goes free. Tana Rabbanim. Echad ishvechad isha, whether it's a man or a woman, berei. Velo b'mayim. So he has to lose control of his bowels, but not wet himself. Either if he wets himself, that's not considered enough. Divrei Rabbi says. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ha'ish b'rei v'ha'isha b'mayim. He says that a man, it has to be losing control of his bowels, but a woman, even wetting herself, is going to be embarrassing, and she goes free with that. The Chacham says,
Lose control of your bowels. It's not embarrassing.
that's right. That's the point. Right. So if you are, then you go free. Chachamim omrim echad ish ve'echad isha. When it comes to a man or a woman, bein berei bein b'mayim, either way, any kind of soiling themselves, they go free. Ve'hatanya, but 1 second, is that what Rabbi Yehuda holds? Rabbi Yehuda, according to what we just said here, that with a man, it's only with losing control of his bowels. With a woman, it is also if she wets herself. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, echad ish ve'echad isha berei, that when it comes to a man or woman, they're the same as far as losing control of their bowels. So therefore, what are you talking about? You just said that with a woman, even if she wets herself. So Rav Nachman, Bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman explains, Shneim Shavim Berei. No, what Rabbi Yehuda just means to say there is that they are both going free when it comes to losing control of their bowels. Also, happens to be, but Rabbi Yehuda is not mentioning that if she wets herself, she also goes free. Not true by a man. But when it comes to the bowels, that is the same. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Kaftuhu. Let's say they tie him up. Veratz. And the guy, Harry Houdini, is his way out, and he escapes. Mi Beistin. He gets out of Beistin. Putter. So now he is exempt from getting lashes and have to bring him back and give him the lashes.
Why would he be putter if he
because we're going to put this under the category of that he's debased himself, right? Getting scared and running off is embarrassing enough, and so you don't have to go put him back in. Okay, so
Doesn't that motivate people to escape?
Yes.
Sure. Well, as long as I get away, I'm okay.
That's right. If you get away, you're
I
done.
don't know about Busha, but at least I don't have to.
Yeah, I'm guessing everyone would
This
attempt
was
to-
done.
Yes, but
When you hit hard enough to soil yourself. That's
This was done where?
in the Basin.
In the basin.
Yeah.
And the Sanhedrin, for example.
Did they do? The Sanhedrin could have done it also.
So what happens if they do it there and they lose control?
Right. I was wondering, did they do it right there in that room? I don't think they would do it in that room.
No,
Yeah, they would
because-
probably take them outside someplace. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a Kodesh.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Mace, we asked the question. Kala, Bein Barishona, Bein B'Shnia, Potrin. So let's say, one second, where I am. Where am I? Okay, there we go. Kala. So we said, let's say the guy loses control of his bowels, right? And whether it bein b'rishona, bein b'shnia, if it's after the first or the second lash, so then he's putter. At that point, he's debased and he is embarrassed. So potrin also nifsika ritzua. If the lash breaks, let's say the whip breaks, so bashnia, if it's in the second after one of the lashes already, potrinoso, then he goes free. Barishona, but if it's in the first one, in potrinoso, that does not count, right? He's not been debased yet because he hasn't gotten any lashes, and there's no embarrassment by having the whip break, right? See, I'm so tough that the whip broke. It's like a Chuck Norris move, huh?
There's no embarrassment with defect on the whip.
That's right. It's a defect if the whip is defective, but he goes free if it happens on the second lash because now he's already received lashes. Now am I? Why should that be? Why should he have to wait till the second lash? Lahave karatz. He should be like somebody who ran away, right? He was tied up there. So the answer is hasam rats hachalorats. The answer is one time he ran away, one time he didn't run away, right? The running away is the embarrassment. So if he's just sitting there and he's tied up and he's putting on a brave face and the whip breaks, then there was no debasement. He's got to.
He's running away because he's scared. Being scared is embarrassing.
Yeah, well, I mean, in front of everybody, right? You don't run away. People get embarrassed. They get scared. Okay, Tan Rabbanan. Our rabbis learned. Amdu lekeshayiloka kala potrinoso. So let's say they're going to evaluate him, right? And they're evaluating that when he gets lashes, he's going to lose control of himself. Okay, so that's their evaluation. So in that case, so then he becomes putter, right, and he doesn't get lashes at all, right? They didn't even have to give him lashes because they know as soon as they hit him, he's going to lose control of his bowels. Based in kala. However, if they note that once he's done and they bring him out and he's on his stretcher getting taken out of based in, then he's going to lose control of his bowels. So then malkanoso, we do give him lashes in that circumstance. Not only that, alafilu kala betchila malkanoso. Not only that, but we say that even if he's going to lose control of his bowels before he gets any lashes, then we're going to give him lashes anyway. Why? Shenemar, because the pasuk says, "V'iko v'nikla." He has to get lashes and then lose control of his bowels. It has to be in that order, right? It's not v'lo sheloka kvar bebeistin. It's not that he loses control of himself out of fear and then doesn't get any of the lashes. So he's got to get something. Okay. Okay. Says the next Mishnah. Kol chayve krisos.
Sorry, he gets. Wait, we said putter before.
We said that he's putter if they evaluate that he's going to get one lash and then soil himself. But if he's going to get, but if he loses control of his bowels before there's any kind of hitting, then he's not putter. That's not enough.
So they still hit him?
Yeah. So you got to wait. Got to hold.
One strike.
Got to wait for at least one hit. Exactly. Says the Mishnah. Kol chayve krisos shelaku nifteru. Right. So all the people who are chayav kares, if they got warned and they got Makkos, like we had been describing in the Mishnayos earlier, so then that exempts them from the obligation to get kares. There's no kares; that's taken care of. Yedei, so nifteru yedei krisasam. Their kares is taken care of, so they don't also get kares.
It's interesting because we said before one of the reasons it wasn't accumulated Rabbi is because one's based in Shalmala and one's based in Shalmata.
Yes.
Now we're saying that if you rip in based in Shalmata,
that's right.
You're forgiven and
yes.
based in Shalmala.
That's correct.
Okay.
Shenamar, as the pasuk says, "V'nikla achecha leinecha." Right, you're going to debase your brother in front of you. Keshelaka harehu ka'achicha. Once he's gotten lashes, so he becomes like your brother again, which means he's part of the nation. He's no longer chayav kares. Divrei Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. That's Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. V'amar Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. Chananya ben Gamliel also says, "Ma im ha'over avera achas notel nafsho aleha." You should know that if you do one avera, sometimes a person can get his life taken away. So ha'osem mitzvah achas alachas kam. You should see how amazing the reward. Right? Don't always look at the negative. See the reward, the amazing reward that comes from doing a single mitzvah. Shetinasim lo nafsho, that your soul will be given to you. Shimon Omer, Shimon says, Mimkomo hulam, and you can even learn that from the pasuk itself. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, "V'nichresu hanefashos haosos." The souls that do these averos are going to get cut off. The Omer, and then the pasuk says on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis, "Asher yaseh osam ha'adam v'chai b'hem," that a person is supposed to do them and live in them. Ha kol hayosh. So that means that, right. So that's the two things opposite. Right? You do the kares and you get punished, and if you do the mitzvos, so then you're going to live. You get your life. So that means ha kol hayosh v'lo avar avera. So that means that since it's like the opposite of if you do the avera, you get kares. That means if you don't do the avera, you get life. So that means somebody who sits and does nothing, and he avoids doing an avera. He's getting a reward like somebody who does a mitzvah. So that's pretty good, right? Sit around, don't do anything, and you get reward. Reb Shimon bar Rabbi Omer. Reb Shimon bar Rabbi says, "Harehu Omer." The pasuk says, "Rak chazak levilti echol adam." Right. So because the pasuk says, right, you should be strong. Don't eat the blood. Ki adam hu hanefesh, because the blood is the soul. Ma im hadam shenafsho shel adam katza mimenu haporish mimenu makabel schar. Take a look at this. Right. Nobody wants to drink blood. That's gross. So
vampires.
Well, yeah, but that's animal's blood. Nobody drinks animal's blood, right? So it's not, even vampires are grossed out by that. So everybody knows the vampires, right? So if a person is right, if a person is already he's disgusted by it, and you don't do something that you already think is disgusting, you get a mitzvah for that, and Hashem rewards you for not doing something you otherwise don't want to do anyway. So gezel v'arayos, imagine stealing or doing the arayos, shenafsho she'oda mitave bahen, that a person wants to do those things, umachmad ason, so and he craves them, haporish mehen alchas v'kama v'kama. So if you separate from those things, how much more so are you getting your reward, schar, for that? Sheyizkelo ledorosov, he's going to get merit for him, for his generations, doros dorosav, and his grandchildren for many generations. Ad sof kol hadoros, until the end of the days. Right? Imagine the huge amounts of reward that are here. Reb Chananya ben Akasha said, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakos es Yisrael, that Hashem wanted to give merit to the Jewish people. Lefichach, therefore, hirbo lehem Torah mitzvos, Hashem gave them many Torah mitzvos.
That's a Dedi song.
Yes, it is. Shenamar, as it says, Hashem chafetz leman tzidko, Hashem wants there to be righteousness. Yagdil Torah v'yadar, he made his Torah great and many, right? There should be many mitzvahs. That's very interesting. Does that mean there's extra mitzvahs? No, but in the context of what the Mishnah is saying is that there are mitzvahs that if Hashem had not commanded us not to do them, like don't drink blood, we wouldn't have done it anyway. The fact that Hashem made it a mitzvah, despite the fact that we wouldn't have done it anyway, is just so that we could get reward for doing it. And so that's Hashem wants, because Hashem wants to benefit us. Says, and it's the last Mishnah. So says the Gemara. Okay, so is it the last Mishnah, or is one more? I think it was.
I think that
was the last Mishnah. Yep, just wanted to point out last Mishnah. Says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Chalukan alav chaverov al Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel." So Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel's friends were cholik on him. They disputed him. Amar Ravada Barava. So that they disputed him that once you get Makkos, so then that removes your kares, right? Amar Ravada Barava. Amri Beirav, so Ravada Barava says, they said it in Yeshiva Rav, Taninon, we learned it. Ein bein Shabbos li Yom Kippurim, ela shezez dono b'dei Shemayim v'zez dono b'dei Kares. There's no difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur, except that if you do the Avera on Shabbos, so then you're going to get Misa b'dei Adam, right? You get a human punishment. But if you do it on Yom Kippur, you're going to get Kares.
We said this before.
Now, V'im Isa, now if you're saying what it's true, that Malchus, we said this before, right? Yeah. If Malchus replaces Kares,
we said B'nei Adam, right? During the week there, if you sit on Shabbos, right?
But Shabbos is B'dei Adam, right?
But
correct.
It means death penalty, no?
That is correct. That's what you're going to get by people, right? Because the Beis Din's going to kill you, right? Misa B'dei Adam. Now, V'im Isa, now if this is true, that you're going to get Malchus instead of Kares, Idividi B'dei Adam, then what are you talking about? There's no difference. Shabbos and Yom Kippur, you get this. They're both of the punishment, or at least that's not the difference. One be Misa, one's Malchus. But you wouldn't say the punishment of one is B'dei Adam, is a human punishment, and the other one is Kares. That wouldn't be the distinction, right?
It sounds like Kares is easier to get to do tshuva for. I mean, kind of.
Sounds like
you get Malchus and you're done.
That's right.
Better than death.
You could always. I
always thought Kares was more. I thought Kares was the worst.
And you could get your tshuva done, right? So Rav Nachman Omer Hamani. So Rav Nachman says, no. Who is this? Rabbi Yitzchak. This is Rabbi Yitzchak. De Amar Malkus b'chayve krisus leka. This is Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion, who says that there is no Malkus. Rabbi Yitzchak is one of the opinions we said before. Malkus does that you don't get Malkus if you're going to get kares. So therefore they're separate. But we who hold that you do get Malkus instead of kares, Malkus is going to take care of your kares. Did Tanya's going to Brayser? Rabbi Yitzchak says chayve krisus b'chlal hayu. Right, all of the chayve krisos, we had all of the list of all of the arayos of all of these people that you're not allowed to have relations with, and then velama yotzis kares b'achoso. Then why is it that it was listed at the end that a person who has relations with his sister gets kares? Laduna b'kares velo b'malkus, in order to tell you that you get kares for that, not any other punishment. And then that is taught to all of the other situations of kares. Whenever it says kares, it means kares, not any other punishment. Ravashi.
Why is it lashes is higher than kares?
We're not saying lashes is higher than kares. We're saying that lashes can be instead of kares. So I'd rather get the lashes than the kares. So you can't get both. So once Beis Din takes over and says, we will give you the lashes, then that could take care of your kares.
Sounds interesting. Sounds like the Beis Din Shalmala works the opposite of Kimlei de Rabbi Mine, right? You get the more moichel one.
I hear that, right?
Right, rather than the more.
You get whichever one comes to you first.
Right.
So it's not really a kamle b'midrava mine because you're under two different jurisdictions.
Right, but it sounds like yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Rav Ashi Amar Rav says afilu tema rabbanon. No, I can even leave that this statement about Yom Kippur and Shabbos is not really that difficult to understand. Even according to the Rabbanan, who holds you really are getting Malkus instead of Kares. What we mean to say is that the main punishment for Shabbos is Misa, and the main punishment for Yom Kippur is Kares. You can get Malkus, you're right, but the point is that they are different in that one is Chayv Kares.
Why is that you're Chayv Kares on Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is higher than Shabbos. Do you think?
Shabbos is higher than Yom Kippur.
Why does
we have fast, right? We get 7 aliyahs on Shabbos, but we fast on Yom Kippur over Shabbos. But Shabbos is the highest level of Kedusha.
I thought Yom Kippur was the Shabbos.
Shabbaton, but it's only 6 aliyahs. It's got a highest level of Kedusha. So yes, there are elements where Yom Kippur overrides Shabbos, and then there are other ways that Shabbos is more chomer. But the answer is because the Torah tells us what the punishment is on Yom Kippur. It says it's kares, and when it comes to Shabbos, it tells us it's misa. That's why. Okay, Amar Rav Ada Barav Rav says Amar Rav Halacha Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. The halacha is like Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. Get your malchus, you don't get kares. Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef says Man Salik Le'elav V'Asav Amar. Who's the one who went up to Shemaim and checked? Right? How'd you find that out? That was a great night. Nice, made a psak. Great. Who went and checked? Right? What kind of thing is that? So Amar Le Abai. So Abai said, Elo Had Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Wait a second. Take a look what Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says. Shosh Devarim also based in Shalmata v'Iskimu based in Shalmala. There are 3 times that things were done in human courts, and Hashem agreed with them. V'hiskimu based in Shalmala Yadam, and Hashem agreed with them. So before we say what they are, who went up to based in Shalmala and asked that whether they agreed with them. Ella, rather, how do you know they agreed? Kroy Kadarshinan. There were psukim, and we interpreted the psukim. So here too, there's a pasuk. That's how we know. Pasuk says that you get malchus, you don't get kares. That's how we know.
Maybe it was wrong. Maybe it was wrong.
Maybe it's a wrong drasha. But his point is that we can understand what the right drasha is, right, for the pasuk. Gufa. Okay, let's talk about that statement. About the statement that there were things that were said in a based in, and we wanted to be able to know whether. And we said that based in Shalmala and Shemaim we agreed with them. Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says Shlosh Devarim also based in Shalmata. There were 3 times things were done in a based in down here. V'Iskimu based in Shalmala, and in Shemaim they agreed with them al Yadam. Elohein, here they are. Mikra Megillah. First of all, in based in down here we established the requirement to read the Megillah. U'she'elish Shalom b'Shem. Also that we say hello to our friends using Hashem's name, right? V'havas Meiser. And we also have the requirements to bring Meiser, And we'll see that was by Chizkiyahu that they established a separate storehouse for the Meiser. Also, there was a ruling by Ezra and Nehemiah that all of the Meiser was going to go to the Kohanim because the Leviim didn't come back in order to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. So they gave the Meiser, which is supposed to go to the Leviim, to the Kohanim because they're also Leviim, right? So they gave it to the Kohanim. Mikra Megillah. Let's talk about the Mikra Megillah. How do we know that the Mikra Megillah was established by the rabbis and Hashem said it was a good idea? Dichsiv, Kiblu ve'kiblu ha-Yehudim. So they stood up and they accepted the Jewish people. It says in the Megillah. Kimu lemala masha kiblu lemata. The based in Shilmala in Shemayim accepted that which was decided by the Jewish people down here. Usheila shalom. How do we know that you're supposed to you say hello to people with Hashem's name?
When we say Shalom Aleichem.
That's why we say Shalom Aleichem. That's exactly right. The pasuk says, "Vehine Boaz ba mi beis lechem." Boaz was coming from Beis Lechem. Vayomer lekotrim, and he waves hello to the harvesters. Hashem imachem. Hashem should be with you. Ve'omer, and he says, Hashem imcha gibor hachayil. Hashem should be with you, the strong one, right? The one who's a master of Torah. So we see that's the Sephardim when they start their Aliyah, right? Hashem imachem, right? That's from here, right? So my ve'omer. What does it mean? Also, why do you need a separate pasuk? V'chitema Boaz hu de'avid midate. Maybe this was Boaz's own idea, right? Maybe Boaz, he's big tzaddik, and he says Hashem. He says hello to people using Hashem's name. Mishmei lo askimu al yodo, but Mishmei lo askimu, but maybe Hashem didn't agree. Right, so that doesn't. So Tashma. So therefore it says the Omer, and then it says Hashem imcha gibor achayil. So therefore everybody answered Hashem should be with you. Habas meiser. Okay, what about this meiser? This case of bringing the tithes. Pasuk says Heviu esko hamaser el beis haotzer. You should bring all of the meiser to this storage house. V'yiteref bebeisi uvechanuni no bezos, and then it will be immediately in my house. And was it Bechanuni Gambazos as Amar Hashem Tzvakos Im Loef Tach Lachem as Arubos Hashemayim Varikosi Lachem Bracha Ad Blidai. Right, if you're going to bring them, and with this I will find kindness. I will show you kindness, says Hashem. If I do not open for you the windows of the sky, and I will empty all of the blessings until Ad Blidai means until there isn't enough. Right, until you say until there isn't enough. So what does it mean? My ad belidai. What does that mean? That statement where until there isn't enough. Amar Rabbi Barav says ad sheyiblu sifso sechem milomar belidai. Until somebody says, until everybody's lips are hurting from saying adai, enough. When we have so much that people are already saying enough already. We've got so much. Amar Rabbi Elazar. So that shows Hashem agreed with it because we got rewarded and got exceptional amounts of good from Shemayim. Amar Rabbi Elazar, begimel makomos Sophia ruach hakodesh there are 3 times that Hashem's ruach hakodesh came into a beis din and got involved in a case. The beis dino shel Shem, the beis din of Shem, the beis dino shel Shmuel, the beis din of Shmuel Haramasi, right? When Shmuel, the beis dino shel Shlomo, and the beis din of Shlomo. Here are the cases. The beis dino shel Shem, in beis din of Shem, pasuk says, Vayaker Yehuda. Right, so Tamar is getting accused of, she was supposed to wait, she was a Yavama, she was supposed to wait until there was another son to do Yibam, and she wound up being pregnant. So therefore they brought her to the beis din of Shem. Vayaker Yehuda, and Yehuda recognized Vayomer tzadka mimeni, and Yehuda was recognized, he said, she is more righteous than me. Mino yada, so how does he know? How did he know that it was that she's right and he's wrong and it was him? All he knows is that he had relations with her, but he doesn't know that nobody else did. So maybe she did do an aveira and she's guilty. How does he know? So the answer is Yatzabas Kol ve'amra. A heavenly voice came out and said, "Mimeni yatsu." Right, that she says that this came from me. Right, so and she says that. So therefore. So mimeni yotzu kevushim. That's what that is. So
yeah. for me, have these hidden things.
For me, these hidden things have come. Right. So these hidden things have come from me. So therefore, that's what the voice of Hashem came out and said. I set this whole thing up, and that's why Yehuda knew that he was the one who was guilty, and so that's where he admitted it. The beis din of Shmuel. Now we have the case of the beis din of Shmuel. Dichsev, the pasuk says, Hinani anu bi neged Hashem v'neged mishicho as shor mila kachti. What happens is the Jewish people come and they complain to Shmuel, we want a king. And Shmuel takes offense to that. I mean, he was in charge. He was the Navi.
Wasn't that thing? Because Hashem's already the king. Why do we didn't know?
Shmuel was not the king, right? Shmuel was the Navi, right?
Hashem's already the king. Well, didn't you get?
Oh, so that was the complaint that Shmuel made. You don't need a king, right? But the Hashem says in the Torah that if you come and you ask for a king, you can have a king. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the first thing that Shmuel says is, why are you coming and asking? Is there some kind of complaint against me, right? Whose ox, right? Whose ox did I take? Right? Where did I steal any property? Vayomru, and they said, Lo ashaktanu, you haven't stolen anything. That isn't our complaint. Our complaint has nothing to do with you. We're very happy with you. Velo ritzuseinu, Vayomer ad Hashem ve'ed mishicho. So Shmuel says, okay, so if it's not me, you're not angry at me, I want you to testify against that. I want you to say, you and Hashem and his anointed one should testify about me that I was clean. It wasn't my fault. Nobody's found any fault with me. Vayomer, and he said, Aid, he says, yes, I testify. Now, Vayomer, he said, Vayomru mi ba'ilei. Should be they said. The Jewish people should have answered, yes, we agree to that, but it says he said. So Yotzos Baskol v'Omra, that was a heavenly voice that came out and said, yes, that is correct. Shmuel, you did not do anything. So Hashem came and testified in court. Ani aid bidvar hazeh. I am a witness in this statement that you were guiltless. Bebeis dino shel Shlomo. Now, what about the case, the third one? The case of the Beis Din in Shlomo. Because there's a mother comes along and she says, that's my baby. And the other mother says, that's my baby. And how are we going to figure out whose baby this one is? Because one of the babies got killed.
A good DNA test.
They did not have them back then. So Dichsev, as the pasuk says, Vayan Hamelech Vayomar, the king answered and he said, Tenu lo es hayeled hachai v'hameis lo temisu v'hameis lo temisu. He says, chop the baby in half. Then the mother says, no, don't. She says, okay, give the baby to that one, and don't kill the baby.
Does that brutality towards the baby, cutting it in half?
Well, he didn't kill the baby though, right? It was a trick, right? That was a bluff, right? Yeah. So, because he says, "Velo temisu," he emo that because that's the mother. So Mino Yoda, how does he know? Dilmi Yorumi Miarma. I mean, I ever wonder, like, okay, so she could have been acting. So she says, no, don't kill the baby. How does that prove anything? Mm-hmm. Right? So the answer is, Yotzas Baskol ve'Amra, a heavenly voice came out of Shemayim and said, he emo, this is the mother. So Amar Rava says, that doesn't prove anything, because Mimai, who says that? Dilma Yehuda, Kaven dechashiv yarche v'yomei, v'yisrami, dechazinon machzikinon, delo chasinon lo machzikinon. Look, when it comes to Yehuda, what did he do? He calculated how pregnant she was, right? So that he calculated back and said, yeah, it makes sense, it's me. Now I've got a chazaka. I know that I had relations with her. I don't know anybody else did. So therefore, it makes sense that it was him, so that's why he calculated that. Shmuel Nami, when it comes to Shmuel, so Kulahu Yisrael, Kari Lahu B'lashon Yechidi. Sometimes the whole Jewish nation is called in singular language. So Desiv pasuk says Yisrael Nosha Hashem. The Jewish people were saved by Hashem. And Shlomo Nami Midaha Kamarachamta v'Halo Kamarachamta. That Shlomo figured it out because one of the mothers was merciful and the other one wasn't. So therefore, that's how he figured the case out. So Ella Gemara, rather, the only reason we know that there was a baskol in all three of those cases is that's our tradition. Doesn't prove it, but it's our tradition that there was one. Darash Rabbi Simloi. Rabbi Simloi says, Sheish me'osu shlosh mitzvos nemru l'Moshe. There are 613 mitzvos in the Torah that were told to Moshe. Shlosh me'os v'shishim v'chamesh lavin, 365 los haseis, keminyan yemos hachama, which correspond to the days of the year. Masayim v'arba shmona asay. There are 248 positive commandments keneged evarav shel adam, which are connected to the limbs of a person. Amar Rav Huna says, Mikra, where do you see that in a pasuk? Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha. That Torah, Hashem was commanded the Torah to Moshe, and Torah b'gematria sheis mea v'chadsrei. The Torah in gematria is 611, and Anochi v'lo yeh mipia gvura Hashem. The first two aseres of the aseres adibros of Anochi Hashem and lo yeh lecha was said by Hashem. So therefore, two of that 611 were given to Moshe, two of them were given directly by Hashem, and that's how we have 613. Okay, so now we're going to narrow it down. Because it's hard to keep 613 ideas in mind. So what we're going to do is, as the generations get worse and worse, we are going to take the number of mitzvos and we are going to condense them to the big ideas.
Because I know the 7 Noahide laws are so much easier to remember.
Yes, but we're going to try to include all of the Torah laws in within bigger categories. So, but David comes David vehemidan al chasisra. He's going to turn it down to 11. 11 things to remember. Much easier. Dichsiv, the pasuk says, Mizmor David, mi yagor ba'alecha, mi yishkom b'har kodshecha. Who is going to live in your tent and will dwell in your holy mountain? Holech tamim, somebody who goes with purity. Upoel tzedek, who is a righteous worker. V'dover emes bilvavo, and speaks truth in his heart. Lo regal al lishono, he doesn't gossip. Right? He doesn't have gossip, evil speech on his mouth. Lo asal l're'ehu ra'a, doesn't do evil to his friend. V'cherpa lo nasa al krovo, he doesn't bring embarrassment to his relatives. Niv ze be'inav nim'as, that which is disgraceful is low in his eyes. V'es yirei Hashem yichbad, the ones who honor Hashem he honors. Nishba l'hara ve'lo yamir, he swears to not do something and he does not break that oath. He doesn't lend his money out with interest. V'shochad al naki lo lakach, he doesn't take bribes, right, for against an innocent person. Osa ela lo yamut li olam, somebody who does all these things will not be ceased for all time. So now let's go through them. Holech tamim, somebody who goes with a straightness, right? Ze Avraham. That's talking about Avraham. Dichsiv, the pasuk says, "He's selech lefanai v'yei tamim." He goes before me, and you will be pure. Paul tzedek, somebody who is a righteous worker. Kagon Abba Chilkiyahu. This is like the story of Abba Chilkiyahu, because. He did not even stop. He didn't respond when the Chachamim wished him well. They said hello. He didn't answer because he was too busy working, and he did not want to. He was an honest worker. He didn't want to take any time away from his work. V'dover emes bilvavo, speak truth in your heart. Kigon Rav Safra. So that's going to be like Rav Safra. When there was a circumstance, the person came to buy something for him and gave him a price, and Rav Safra was in the middle of Kriya Shema and he didn't answer. But then the guy raised his price, finally finished Shema. He goes, no, I would have accepted the lower price. And he gave him the lower price. Lo regal al lishono, right, that you should not have lying in your mouth. That's Yaakov Avinu. That's talking about Yaakov Avinu. It's interesting because Yaakov Avinu is the one who did trick his father. But he's saying there was no lying in his mouth. Dichsiv, the pasuk says, Ulayi musheni avi, right? Maybe my father is going to feel me, va'yisi ve'enav kimisateya, and I'm going to look like I am being a trickster in his eyes. So lo asal l're'ehu ra, he doesn't do anything to his friend evil. Shalo yarad le'umnos chavero. That means he doesn't try to take his friend's job. Right? He doesn't try to go into business to compete with his friends. Ve'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. He doesn't bring embarrassment to his family. Zeh mekarev es krovov. This person who takes care and brings his family close. Nivze be'enov nim'as. Somebody who is something that is disgraceful in his eyes is debased. Zeh chizkiyahu hamelech. This is talking about Chizkiyahu the king, Shegir Atzmos Aviv, B'matel Shechavolim, right? That we remember that he dragged his father's bones, who was the evil king before him. He dragged his father's bones because he was so disgraced on the fact that his family had done something. So there was the fact what is the averos that his father did was so disgraceful to him that he had to take action. Ves Yirei Hashem Yichbad, the ones who fear Hashem he should honor. Ze Yehoshaphat Melech Yehuda. This is talking about Yehoshaphat, the king of Yehuda. Shebeshah Shahaya Roa Talmid Chacham, whenever he would see a Talmid Chacham, Haya Omid Mikiso, he'd get up from his throne, Omechabko Minashko, he would get up, give him a big hug and a big kiss, Vekore Lo, and he would say, Rebbe, Mari, Nishbala Hara V'lo Yamir, somebody who swears, he's not going to falsify his oath. Rabbi Yochanan, this is like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Hey b'tanis ad she'avot lebeisi." Somebody, Rabbi Yochanan would make the oath. He says, "I'm going to be fasting until I get home." And he would take that oath, and he would fulfill that oath. Kaspo lo natan b'neshech. He wouldn't lend his money with interest. Afilu b'rivus obez kochavim, even to a non-Jew, which technically speaking is permitted. Now it's interesting because we had learned before that somebody who lends interest to a non-Jew, somebody is supposed to lend interest to a non-Jew, because that proves that he understands that it's only prohibited to a Jew, but okay. V'shochad, this person is trying to stay away from Averos altogether. V'shochad al naki lo lakach, he doesn't take any kind of bribery on the innocent. Kigon Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi, like Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi, that what happened to him is that he had a sharecropper who normally would pay him on a Friday. He shows up, he was in court, he comes in, and his sharecropper comes and he hands him his payment on Thursday. He says, why are you paying me early? It's not due till tomorrow. He said, well, I have a court case with you today anyway, so I figured as long as I'd see you, I'd bring the money today instead of waiting till tomorrow. So then Rabbi Yishmael says, well, I can't take the money, it's too early. And not only that, but now that you came to me, it's almost like a bribe, so I can't judge your case anymore. And he recused himself and put somebody else instead.
We're going to find another judge for you, huh?
That's correct. Okay. Ksiv osa eila lo yamut. So he says, now the pasuk says that if he does these things, so then he's not going to be cut off, right? So he's going to be able to be successful, liolim forever. So kishahaya Rabbi Gamliel magil mikrazeh, when Rabbi Gamliel will get to this pasuk, haya bochi, he'd start crying. He says, Omer man de'ovid lekuluhu hudol. You got to do all these things, right? If you don't do all of these things, so then you're in trouble. So that's a lot. So if you only do one of those things, yamut, then you're in trouble. So Amrulay, they said to him, Miksiv Osa Kol Eila. It doesn't say you have to do all of them. It says Osa Eila, you do these things, right? All these things are good. So Ksiv Afilu B'chadaminayu means that you're going to get reward even if you do even one of these things. Dilo Temahachi, because if you don't explain it like that, Ksiv Kroachrinan, there's another pasuk that says, Al Titam'u B'Kol Eila, you should not become impure with all of these things, right? We're talking about the illegal relationships. It says don't do any of these, don't do all of these things. Hasam Nami Anogeh B'Kol Eila Hu De Mitame. You've got to touch all of these impure things in order to become Tameh. No, b'chadaminayu lo, and if you touch one of them, you're not. Ella la ba'achas mikol eila. So it's any one of these things. So hachanami. So also here ba'achas mikol elu. It has to be just one of these things. Okay, so 11 was a lot. So ba Yishayahu v'midanol sheish. So Yishayahu Novi, comes later and he says 6 things. Tichsiv pasuk says holech tzedakos, go with righteousness. V'dover me'shurim, and speak straight. Mo'es bebetza me'ashkos. He says, "Moes bebetza ma'ashakos," right? That money that is made dishonestly, right? Which is excessive extortion pricing, right? Extortion pricing. So that is going to be should be disgraceful to you. Noar kapav mitmoch. He should shake his hands mitmoch shochad. He should shake his hands away from taking a bribe. Otim asno mishmo damim, and he should bend his ear away from hearing blood, meaning to hear evil speech. V'otim einav miros bara, and he should turn his eyes away from seeing something evil. Holech tzlakos, so go with righteousness. Ze Avraham Avinu. This is talking about Avraham Avinu. The pasuk says, "Ki dativ leman asher yitzava Hashem," that he knew that which Hashem was going to command him. So he was going along in righteousness. V'dover meisharim, to speak with straight. Ze she'enu maknit pnei chaveru barabim. This is somebody who does not embarrass his friend in public. So that's the way to go. Mo'es bebetza mashkos. So this is somebody who is not going to charge exorbitant pricing. That is Kagon Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha. So this applies to the story of Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, who was a Kohen. And if somebody would bring him a present matnas kahuna that he normally gave to another Kohen, he would refuse it. So even though he could receive it, he was a Kohen. But he says, you normally don't give it to me, you give it to somebody else, he would refuse to take it. Noar kapav mitmoch b'shochad, somebody who is not being able to take any sort of bribes. Kigor mishma Rabbi Yossi, like the story of Rabbi Yossi, who we already talked about. Otim azno mishma davim, turn your ear away from hearing any negative. Delo shama bezilusa detzurban rabbanim, you should not ever hear the embarrassing, somebody say something negative about the rabbis and stay quiet. Kigon Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, like the story of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, when he died, so his wife and him wanted to do a test to be able to see, because the people who are righteous, their bodies do not decompose. So they put his body in the attic. And they left it there, and it wasn't decomposing after a long time. So she saw a worm in his ear, and she got very upset, because that means, there's a problem. He came to her in a dream. He said, no, don't worry about it. There was one time that I heard something said about a rabbi and I didn't protest, and that's why I'm getting punished for that avera. That was my avera. Somebody should turn his eyes away from seeing evil. Kid, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Chia bar Abba says, Rabbi Chia bar Abba said, somebody doesn't look in the direction. We're not talking about somebody who sees something inappropriate. The ladies, when they're washing their clothes, so they go into the water and their garments are wet, or they have to pull up their garments so that their ankles can go into the water. And that's not the most sneeze situation, so you don't look there, right? That's how makbid you have to be. The pasuk says, "Hu meromim yishkon," he will dwell upon high. But Micha, so then Micha comes, v'mid al shalosh, says, okay, we're down to 3. Micha comes along and says to 3. Tichsev pasuk says, "Higid lecha adam matov u'mashem dorish mincha." I'll tell you, humans, what is it that is good and what Hashem is seeking from you. Ki imasos mishpat, you should do the laws, v'avas chesed, and love kindness, v'atznei alechas im elokecha, and walk and go in a modest way. Asos mishpat, so do the mishpat. What is that? Zeh hadin, that is the laws that are logical, right? Logical laws that you're supposed to do. Avas chesed, like love kindness, zug milos chasadim, you should do kindness to other people, v'atznei alechas, and this somebody should walk in modesty, zuhot tzas hameis v'achnasas kala. This is when you give money in order to pay for a funeral or to have a wedding. Now, v'alo dvarim kavachomer. There's a big kal v'chomer here. Madvarem she'ein darkon lasoson betzina. A funeral is a public event. So is a wedding, and we're being told to donate quietly to the funeral. Right? Don't make a for the funeral and to the wedding. Donate quietly. So Amra Torah vatznei alechas. So the Torah tells you should be modest when you give. Dvarim shedarkon lasoson betzina alachas kama v'kama. So if things that are supposed to be done quietly, for sure you should do those quietly. Right? Everything you should do quietly. Do it nice and humbly. Chazar Yeshaya v'hemidon alshtaim. Yeshayahu Hanavi comes along and he says the 2 things. Here's the 2 things you need to remember. Tomer Ko Amar Hashem Shimru Mishpat V'Asut Tzedakah. 2 things. Keep the laws and be right and do tzedakah. But Amos comes along. Amos ve'amidon alachas. It's just one simple principle. One thing you got to keep. Shneim pasuk says, "Ko amar Hashem lebeis Yisrael." This is what Hashem says to the Jewish people: "Dirshuni v'chiyu." Seek me and you will live. Just keep coming after me. That's one thing. Go learn. Maskif lo Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, "Ema dirshuni b'chol Torah kula." How do you know that it doesn't mean that you should seek me out by learning the whole Torah? That's a lot. That's all 613 mitzvahs. We just didn't narrow it down. We just widened it out greatly. Ella, so rather, Chabakuk, it was Chabakuk who came along, and he said, V'minachas, he said it's only on one thing. Shemar Pasuk says, V'tzadik be'emunaso yichya, a righteous person lives by his faith. So that's what you just have to worry about. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says, Arba gzeros gozer Moshe Rabbeinu al Yisrael. So there were 4 things that Moshe Rabbeinu decreed against the Jewish people, bad things. Bo arba neviim ubitlum, and 4 prophets came and they asked Hashem, please take them away from us, and Hashem nullified those decrees. Moshe Rashi says, Vayishkon Yisrael betach badad ein Yaakov. That Moshe Rabbeinu says that the Yisrael, when they're being good and they're called Yisrael, so they will dwell in security alone when they are like Yaakov, when they're not righteous, so then they're going to be in trouble. So when there's somebody who's like, when there isn't somebody like Yaakov within them, you're going to be, you need somebody like Yaakov within your midst in order to
in their best behavior.
That's correct. So ba almost bitla, almost comes along and he nullifies that. Shenamar pasuk says, Chadal mi Yaakov. So he says that who says there's going to be somebody as good as Yaakov in our midst? Right? What do we do if there's no tzaddikim like Yaakov? What are we supposed to do? Uksiv, so the pasuk says, Nicham Hashem azos. Hashem had mercy on. He changed his mind. He revoked that decree, so we can still have peace and security, even if we don't have righteous people like Yaakov. Moshe Amar Rav Yosef says, "Ubegoyim ahem lo targia." Right, that when you're amongst the non-Jews, you will not be able to have any sort of a tranquility. But Yirmiyah says, when you're haloch lahargio Yisrael, that let's make sure I translate that right.
Yisrael. The prophet Yirmiyah came and said,
even when so even when the Jewish people are in Golus, right, Hashem is going to go with them in order to be able to keep them, to be able to give them a little bit of peace and tranquility. Haloch lehargio Yisrael. That Hashem is going to go in order to keep everybody tranquil. Moshe says, Pokeda avon avos albanim, that Hashem is going to visit the sins of the fathers onto the children. But Yechezkel came along and he nullified that. He says, Hanefesh hachotes hi tamus. The person who sins, he should die, not the kids. Moshe says, V'ibadatem bagoyim, that you're going to, that the 10 tribes, they're going to be destroyed in the nations. They're going to be sacked, and then they're going to be sent to every Israel. They're going to be destroyed. But Yeshayahu, a Navi comes along and he says, V'hayaba Yamahu will be on that day. Yitaka b'shofar gadol. They're going to blow the shofar, and Uba Ovdim, and all of the ones that were lost are going to be regathered and come back. So they're going to be lost for now, but they will eventually come back. Amar Rav says, Mistafina mehaikra v'ibadatem bagoyim. Well, we should take a look at it says in the pasuk, so that they're going to be destroyed, they're going to be lost, right? So we're going to see from this pasuk at least it's not so good. It means that they're going to be lost among the nations. So Maskef Rav Papa says Dilma kaveda hamispakeshes. Maybe they're like a lost item that people are looking for, right? They're just something that they're really tichsiv ta'isi kaseh oved bike shavdecha, that you're wandering like a lost sheep. So you are being sought. Your servants are being sought. Ela misefa dekra. Rather, the concerning part is the end of the pasuk that says "V'achlo osam eretz oivechem," that the land of their enemies is going to consume them. So that was what Moshe Rabbeinu, what the issue that they were concerned about. Moshe Rabbeinu said. Maskif law Marzutra. Marzutra says Dilma kachilas kishun v'diluin. Still not so bad. Maybe it just means that the Jewish people are going to get consumed like cucumbers or gourds, meaning that when you harvest your cucumbers and your gourds, you harvest just the ones that you're going to eat and you leave the rest of them there. So therefore, only some of the nation is going to get destroyed, but there will be those that survive. There was already a story, right, in these kinds of contrast where we have one Navi that says one thing, and then another Navi comes along and interprets it and makes it clear what the statement is, so it doesn't come out so bad. So this was the story that happened with Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Shua, and Rabbi Akiva. Mahachin baderech, they were going along. V'shamu kol hamona shel romi mi plata barachok mea ve'esr mil. They heard a great sound from Rome. They were celebrating in the streets, and it was 120 mil away. So it was a great sound of a great celebration that was going on in Rome. And they said the Romans were the bad guys. And they were celebrating, and Rabbi Akiva.
Really? Like all these.
So they were. You're going to see that they were in Eretz Yisrael, but that was far away. But nevertheless, I guess they could hear it already from Rome, right? They hitzchilu boch, and they started crying. Rabbi Akiva mesachek. Rabbi Akiva was laughing. Amru, they said to him, they said, why are you laughing? Amru laham ma'atem bochim. He said to you, crying. Amru, they said, goyim halalu shemishtachavim latzavim umekatrim lavados kechavim. These goyim, they bow down to their idols and they burn incense to avodah zarah. Yoshvin betach, they're vahashket, they're dwelling all securely and with tranquility. Va'anu beis hadom raglai elokeinu saruf ba'esh. And us, the footstool of God, the Beis Hamikdash, is burned in fire, and we're not secure at all. Says we're on Chaf Daled on a base. Lo velo nivka, and how could we not be crying? Amar lahen, so Rabbi Akiva says back to him, lakachani mitzachik. That's why I'm laughing, because umal over rutzono kach. If this is the reward for people who do the wrong things, so loose rutzono achas kama v'kama. So then, when we do the right things, so the people who do the right things are going to get even greater reward. Stop here for the final story, which we will say on Shabbos.
Oh yeah.
Shuv Pam, this is the final story, right?
Shuv Pam is the final story.